I'm here to end this railroad versus sandbox debate back and forth all the time. I got a third option for you, a downhill water slide. Wait, what, a water slide? Yes. Brennan Lee Mulligan went on an amazingly epic rant about this concept of how to approach a railroad and how railroads aren't actually as bad as people think and how sandboxes maybe aren't what you want either. So what is a water slide and how does it compare to railroad versus sandbox? We're gonna dive into all of this. I'm gonna let Brennan himself explain this whole situation to you. Then we'll break it all down and see how you can implement this for yourself into your games. This was honestly a game changer for me, so I hope it can help you out too. Take it away, Brennan.
What I'm looking for when I'm a player is full immersion. I don't want the experience of being a storyteller when I'm a PC. Yeah. And that's a little bit of a different thing. Like a lot of indie games want a flat hierarchy around the table where everybody's typed as a storyteller. I don't want that when I'm a player. When I'm a player, I want to be living in a story, immersed into a character that is not, to their knowledge, living in a story. Like Evan Kelp says in Misfits and Magic, I'm not a character. Right? I don't want to play a character that's thinking about their fucking narrative arc. I want to play a character that wants to save the world as quickly and efficiently as possible, right? But I, the player, want the arc. So me and my character exist at odds because I want the deep immersion. I want the fucking Mount Doom, Frodo's Quest, all that shit. But I want to play a character that doesn't want that. I want to play a character that gets the ring as quickly and safely as possible to Mount Doom because that's the immersion I'm looking for.
That concept of thinking from the perspective of a player, I had never thought of before, probably because I don't get to be a player that often, but it's so true. Most of the times when I talk about metagaming, I'm not talking about players acting on outside knowledge and information they have and they're trying to cheat the game. That's not what I'm talking about. I want my players to be synced up with their character, and if they are in their character, fully immersed into their character, they should be acting on the things that they would do as their character, and they should just be in this world. They shouldn't have to pull back and be like, actually, you know what? There's this quest over here, and I guess we have to go do that because it would feel bad if like the Dungeon Master did this, and because I don't want them to feel railroaded. See, here's the first little comparison of these things. I don't want them to feel railroaded towards something because they feel like they have to do it. And that's the beauty here that Brennan's about to go into the part 2 of this description to describe this water slide analogy is I want them to go there because their character would go there. But then from the sandbox perspective, if you truly have things all over the place everywhere and the player pulls back like, what are we supposed to be doing here? That's so many times I've heard of and experienced myself in sandbox worlds. It's where are we going right now? Things are just kind of floating around aimlessly. So yes, the player and the character are able to do whatever they want and kind of be immersed, but where are they going? You won't get any big narrative Mount Doom arc like Brennan's talking about, and it's just going to be kind of a cluster. So how can you solve all of the problems with Railroad and all of the problems with Sandbox in one beautiful solution? Well, here's your water slide.
So what does that mean if I want to provide that experience to a player? Players are like water. They are going down the hill as fast as they can, seeking the path of least resistance. That's the character is like water. But the player wants anything other than a straight line. So my job as rails is irrigating a path down that lets the water always have taken the fastest route towards its goal, but at the end of it, the shape is the most convoluted and pleasing, right?
So let's break this thing down, because Brennan, when he originally first said it, he accidentally said that players were like water, and then he clarified that characters are like water. So to put the big picture here, characters are like water. You're at the top of a hill with a big lake that's just overflowed from a bunch of rain and starts to overflow down this hill. It's going to flow down the path of least resistance. So if there's a trench that leads off to the right, it's going to flow down that way and then curl off to the left and tell this story of a winding, weaving road. But meanwhile, the players are not water. They want to burrow down straight down the hill and run straight down the hill to try and get to the objective. They don't want to have to feel forced to have to, well, let's go ahead and go this way, and then we'll go this way because we have to, and this is what we really should do, or this is what, we have to accomplish these things. But overall, the biggest thing that stuck with me the most is this clip here that we're going to really break down.
You achieved the shape of a story while you were trying your hardest to go in a straight line. if that makes sense.
I love that.
Yeah, yeah.
So you, as a dungeon master with your players, achieve the shape of a beautiful story, a weaving, winding path of a water slide. As your players, from their perspective, were trying their hardest to go in a straight line, but that straight line naturally led them through this winding, weaving path. So the big part now is, how do you do this? How can we learn from this and approach the game in a little bit different way to make things even better? I'm going to talk about it conceptually from just a theoretical approach of how you can approach the game, and then actual tangible examples. So the DM theory here would be, instead of a railroad conductor where the players get in the train and we're going from here to there, here we go, or a sandbox where you're just like, good luck, have fun. Instead of that, picture yourself at the top of a hill. There's water that's about to overflow, and you know you want to go down the hill, but paint a cool weaving story instead of just some trench that goes straight down, because it's not going to feel good. If they go from point A to point B, oh, we did it, but it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel like you earned that also. There's a whole layer of that as well. It's not just about telling a story. It's not trying to make it complicated where it doesn't need to be. It's trying to weave and wind in there things that make it feel earned, depth, all the kind of stuff that you want to accomplish from their backstories, everything all in one big picture once it's over. So before that water starts cresting over that hill, you got to start digging that trench. You're digging the trench to the left. We're going to dig all the way across, but I'm going to make sure it's still downhill. I don't want to go uphill because now the water's going to spill over there. You got to still make it go downhill, and you're thinking about the players, you're thinking about their backstories, you're thinking about the big picture, and you dig it all the way to the side, and you curve it around, do a little zigzag, dip it back across, still making sure to go downhill so that the water can keep moving along its natural course of action and not feel forced, and players can still be immersed in their characters who are flowing like water. Okay, cool, great metaphor, analogy, all that kind of stuff. But now, how do you do this? What does it look like to dig these trenches and weave these all the way across? Brennan also follows up himself here with this whole thing about talking about shapes and different things, the layout. Here's a little clip there.
I really think about myself as improvising in reaction to the players with a bag full of lots and lots of storytelling tropes, right? That is literally like, I'm in reaction to you. You're driving, but I have a double helix. I have a weird S. I have this roundabout and this clover leaf. I have these shapes that I'm going to throw in front of you because I know you're trying to go straight, but I know you'll be sad if you do.
So now I'm going to elaborate here because these are still metaphors, and I want to give you actual tangible advice here of what these shapes are. And these shapes is a beautiful example of like, ooh, I have this weird curvy thing that would go good here because they'll still go here. And you know the different itches that your players are wanting to scratch through, firstly, their character's backstory. What do they want to do and accomplish? What is in their backstory? Each character backstory, you should have a couple of shapes in your bag from, a couple of NPCs that they care about, a couple of plot hooks and plot holes, mysteries from their backstory. You also have goals that character has of what that character wants to accomplish. All of these are ammo in your hypothetical bag, excavation bag, to be able to build a path of least resistance. Secondly, you also have the character's motivation, not just their backstory and goals, but like, what does that character like to do? What does that character engage with? Do they love to build things? Do they love to hunt different rare exotic types of animals? You know the type of bait that you can dangle out in front of those characters and what those characters like to act on. Now, I'm saying characters a lot because the third thing I'm saying is the players. You should also know those players and what they will bite on. Because at the end of the day, as a dungeon master, you are dealing with a player who is controlling a character. So there are two things there that you should address both of, and know your players well enough to know which one they'll act on. Because sometimes players, like Brennan talked about, they're at odds. They are different, but they are still going to bite and follow on certain things. Because yes, if every player was perfect, it wouldn't matter what the player wanted. They would all be in their characters, but that's not realistic. That's not what's actually happening, because there is a player at the table that wants to play the game. So I want to keep in mind, how much of combat do my players like? How much social encounters, exploration? Do they like skill challenges, puzzles? What things engage or disengage them? Because if your entire group hates shopping and is not going to go to the local magic shop, you might not want to put a plot hook there. But if your entire party loves gold and collection and magic items, and they have the whole thing and they all love shopping episodes, then maybe a cool path for that water to be is throw down a really awesome magic shop that has a really interesting NPC that has a key piece of information. Or maybe if your players love to rescue people, one of the people that you have the information for is now captured and needs to go be rescued, and that's the plot hook you give them. But you need to know your players well enough to know what kind of excavation you need to do to dig these trenches so the water can and flow. Timeout. I'm about to hand it off to Matt Mercer for a follow-up point he said to Brennan about the modularity of how to do all this stuff. But if you do like these type of DM tips and you want to take stuff modularly and plug them into your game, think about joining my Patreon. Every single month I publish DC playbooks that have tons of DM tools, homebrew resources to be able to plug into your games to help with your game prep, to be able to take in, like this bag of options we're talking about, be able to take magic items, monsters, adventure hooks, entire adventures, whatever it is, to be able to plug into your games to help you with that game prep and help you tell stories. It is the support from my patrons that make all this possible, with weekly videos, live streams, D&D resources, and everything else. So thank you, and back to the video. All right, now Matt has a great follow-up right after Brennan said all of this rant that he went on about this water slide. Matt added in one little extra bit.
And to that point, like, part of the preparation, to kind of what you were saying earlier, is getting to know enough about the world and the kind of story that you're hoping to tell and you're hoping the players will enjoy, so that when you do start, you can kind of let all that preparation go and just ride with the player, you know, actions and agency, and have that bag at the ready. And at that point, like, a lot of your preparation should be modular. Yeah. You know, you should know which things are important to tell the story, what bits of information you feel would be the most impactful for the players to discover, to uncover, to take to heart and use to drive them towards a goal to fulfill that heroic fantasy or that you know, horror narrative, whatever it is you're using to tell. You want to make sure that anything that's important to that story can be shifted.
The key word there is modular. So to combine both of these points of this path, of this bag of tricks that you have, with modular things of different shapes that you can plug and play anywhere you want, you can really direct them, lead the players down this beautiful storytelling path. And the part not to forget is it's a reaction to what the players are doing. You're not just like, okay, well, here we go. I've built out the entire thing. Now I'm waiting for the water to go. You don't know what's going to happen. It could rain. The water could splash forward. There could be more water. Things are going to be changing. I'm going to step away from the analogy a little bit because it falls apart a little bit right there. But you want to build this path in a reaction to what your players are doing. They're starting to go this way. You're seeing them at the session live, how things are going from session to session, and you know what shapes you have, you know what places they're going. Throw in curveballs all the time and know what you have in that bag. Keep adding more stuff to it. Keep it modular to be able to move it around into the right spot. And that concept leads me to a huge thing I want to go into about modularity of games and how to make modular things. All of this stuff from the concept all the way down to practical application. I want to make a whole video on modular resources and how to make modular resources for your game. So comment down below, let me know if that video sounds good, or I want to do a sandbox game of why sandboxes are terrible. And I have done a sandbox campaign for my current campaign I have going on right now on my second channel, Dungeon Coach Plays. It's always down in the description. I started off with a massive sandbox, and ooh, it's rough. So let me know what kind of thing you want to see down in the comments. But my biggest thing I want to say about railroads now, to try and go back to that concept, is instead of thinking of railroads in a straight line, this downhill water slide is more similar to railroading than it is to a sandbox, because sandbox would just be the water's going to go, okay. And railroading, I want you to think of curved railroads, or think of it as asking your players what types of things they're interested in. And as soon as they tell you, I really love this, that's all different stuff in your bag, the different shapes. And you can think of those shapes as rails, that you are building out a railroad and a different path based on what they're wanting. Because technically, this downhill water slide analogy, digging a trench is a lot like building a rail, but it's rails based on improvisation from this bag of tricks that you have with a ton of different shapes, modularly based on what your players love. Wow, I think I really put it all together in that last little sentence there. But also the bonus tip here is, and it does match in with the metaphor, sometimes there will be spillover. Sometimes the players will go off the rails or go off the water ditch onto their own way. It's going to rain, it's going to pour, it's going to spill over, the water, the minerals are going to break, and that's okay. You get the idea. Don't prevent your players or stop them or get frustrated if they do divert from the path, because that is why you have this bag in the first place. That's why the bag in the first place is also modular, so that you can, oh gosh, now boom, 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 and you start throwing down those things out of your bag from this new direction they're going, which is what brings in the sandbox element, because yes, it is rails, but instead of a hard metal rails, it's loose, wet dirt. I really do think this is an amazing analogy about the water slide, because the dirt is more pliable than metal, and they're going to go off road, but you're going to be ready for that with your modular bag of tricks. And if you want more modular bags of tricks, check out my Patreon. But I hope you like videos like this. I hope they really do help you think of the game a little differently, approach game prep a little differently, get those modular rules, get your bag going, and trust me, when you have that bag at the table, you're gonna be ready to do anything. Which also matches up with the catchphrase of thinking outside the bag. Or box. It could be a box. Think outside the box. Peace.